Welcome to PhD PDF Scholarship podcast with Dr. Shrutidhara Sarma. Dear friends, hope you are doing well. Welcome to our first podcast of our PhD Postdoc Scholarship Group. This is an exclusive group for mechanical engineers. This group has researchers currently doing PhD and postdoctorate at international universities and premium institutes, and also scientists working at R&D labs who are willing to share their experience and keen to help aspirants to evolve them as researchers. To bring them into limelight and get to know their experience is the main intention of our podcast. Before the discussion session with our guest, let's have a quick intro. Over to you, Arun.
I am Arun Kiraj, and I'm currently working as a research fac assistant professor at Amartya University in Coimbatore campus. I did my after completing my postdoc at University of California and at IIT Bombay. I joined here, and I did my PhD in thermal science from NIT Calicut. And let's pass it to Prem.
Hello, myself Prem Kumar. I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering from University of Kerala. I was a classmate of Dr. Nirmal, and I post that I went to study masters in technology from IIT Roorkee in industrial metallurgy and material science. And post that I worked 2 years in a company called Loxis Techno Private Limited. After 2 years of working I went on to work with CSA, National Institute of Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, Thiruvananthapuram. After doing my 1 year of research at CSAR, I got my PR, and currently I am in Toronto, Canada. Currently I'm working for Commissioners Great Lakes as ERP Project Associate.
Myself, Nirmal, currently doing PhD in high temperature computation at Swinburne University, Melbourne, with the industrial research collaborators at Asst, Netherlands. Prior to joining PhD, I did Masters in Fluid and Thermal Engineering from Guwahati, and I was working for Indian Naval Scorpion-class submarines as senior engineer. I did my bachelor's from Kerala University, and after graduation, I was working with Infosys engineering unit as design and value engineer for Airbus and Bombardier. So, now kick off our first podcast. We have an young, energetic, and enthusiastic researcher who is an assistant professor at IIT Jodhpur, Dr. Shrutidhara Sarma, joining with us today. Let's now get to know a briefing of Dr. Shrutidhara's profile from Prem.
Let's hear a brief introduction about her. Dr. Shrutidhara is currently working as an assistant professor at IIT Jodhpur. Earlier, she was working at NIT Delhi. She did her bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Tezpur University, Assam, with an Institute Gold Medal. Post that, she did her PhD in IIT Guwahati. She was awarded Erasmus Mundus Fellowship through interweave scheme for doing research on developing multi-layered nanocomposite based thin film sensor during her third year of PhD. She was also nominated to represent IIT Guwahati at Genesis 2.0, organized by JICE, Japan International Corporation Center. After her PhD, she did her postdoc from Center Urban Wind Energy Center, CUWES, Kunsan, South Korea. So, talking a bit about FERN Lab, which I discussed earlier, the goal of her research is to design and fabricate highly reliable and mechanically robust physical sensor based on novel nanocomposites with applications in wearable sensors for health monitoring and energy saving devices and smart structures. Talking a bit about the WISER grant, she received her WISER grant. So WISER grant is a grant which is given to female scientists in India. This grant was awarded to pursue a collaborative research with TU Braunschweig in Germany. So it was awarded to her for developing a smart sensor patch for synchronized non-invasive ventilation of preterm infants. She also received a startup research grant from Science and Engineering Research Board, Government of India. On top of that, she also received the prestigious Maria Sklodowska-Curie Actions, a grant for summer school at Cardiff University for doing research on real-time temperature monitoring using flexible temperature sensors. Talking a bit about her extracurricular activities, she is a well-renowned tabla artist, and she got an All India tabla competition award back in 2003. And she's a certified B grade artist at AIR, All India Radio. Her students, she has 3 doctorates, 3 masters, and 3 bachelor students currently working under her. Already 3 of her masters and 2 of her bachelor students have graduated. This is all about the introduction. Over to Nirmal.
So now let's hear from our guest itself. Over to you, Dr. Shrutidhara Sarma.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Prem, for that detailed and exhaustive and elaborative introduction. First of all, let me congratulate you for all of you, Nirmal, Prem, and Arun, for starting this initiative, which is, I think, a great initiative for students. And I would consider this podcast successful even if only one student benefits from today's discussion, because there are a lot of things that we assume that people know, but most of the students do not. So I think if we can pass on certain points which they can use in their career, I think that would be great. So congratulations on starting this. And also thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of it and sharing my experience. Prem has already covered my introduction part. So I think that's all. Yeah.
Now then, let's start off our discussion session. I think over to Arun for the first question.
Sure.
Okay, so first of all, like as an early career researcher or as a PhD or an ongoing master student, what I would like to know initially is that what is your area of research, and if you can relate it to a real world application, like how is your research is helping to aid the technology development in that sort of way. It would be very helpful for the viewers and people to know what does FERN Lab do and those kind of things.
Sure. Can I share a slide? Maybe because I think a picture is worth more 1,000 words. So
sure.
It's easier to explain what I do. Is it visible?
Yes.
Right. So this is 2 years back, I established this lab, which I call Flexible Sensors from Nanocomposites, FERN Lab, in short, in IIT Jodhpur. And what we do is we develop physical sensors. Physical sensors means the sensors that can detect physical parameters like temperature, strain, pressure, etc. And we use nanocomposites. Nanocomposites are basically composite materials where, so you're mixing 2-3 different materials, and one of those constituents should be in the nano dimension. Why we use nanocomposites is because you can get the answer by Googling, because they have tons of advantages which you cannot get from traditional composites. And what we do is we are not diving deep into the material, but we are trying to develop sensors out of those nanocomposites. So a lot depends on how you fabricate the sensors, what methods are you implementing, what materials are you combining, how you are dispersing. So it's a combination of materials and methods to develop sensors that can be used in real worlds. There are plethora of applications that nanocomposite sensors can be applied to, but I mostly focus on 2 things. One is wearable devices and sensors for structural health monitoring. So the first one, wearable devices, you can look at this example. This is a sensor that we recently developed in our FERN Lab. This sensor, because it's in the crude form, so it looks like this. But if you compare it with the contemporary sensors available currently, this is flexible, it has a very rapid response rate, and it has a very high sensitivity. So this sensor is made from a layered nanocomposite, and you can attach it onto the skin for continuous monitoring of the body temperature. This is very helpful if you think of applying it on patients who are recovering post-surgery, so post-operative monitoring of patients, because such patients who are under anesthesia do not have the ability to move, so they cannot hold the mercury thermometer. And there are sophisticated equipments like infrared thermography, but if you do that, the patient's mobility is compromised. So this kind of flexible sensors can become very handy in that. So this is one area that we target. The second area that we target is how you can look at the architecture or structural level within the sensor so that you can enhance its sensitivity or its performance. So for example, the best way I would like to explain this is one of my favorite example. If you look at the Eiffel Tower, it's a structure as a whole. But if you zoom out one single portion of it, you will see that there are certain structures within it. These structures are known as girders. You take one girder out and you will see there are again structure within that girder. And you can keep doing that until you go down to the microstructure level where you will see there is a lattice of a particular pattern. Now, this means that there is a structure within a structure within a structure. And because there is a hierarchy in structure of this overall structure, which is the Eiffel Tower, the properties of the Eiffel Tower is very, very different compared to another Eiffel Tower replica if you make it from a solid piece of iron or steel. Now, this is about hierarchical microstructures. When you implement it at sensor level, it will look something like this. It may not be that complicated like an Eiffel Tower, but it could be simply like this you can see in the silicon mold. So because of this pattern that we have, the sensor has very higher amount of sensitivity. So you can think of it like that if there were a plain film without this pattern, then you can bend it only up to a certain amount. But if you introduce this kind of patterns, then the sensitivity increases because there are air voids within the sensor, which allows you to compress it more. So, and these microstructures, if you look under the microscope, look something like this. So this is the second type of work that we are working on. So we develop this kind of high performance or more widely deformative strain sensors. And these sensors, this is one single sensor that I'm showing here, but you can embed them and make an array of sensor and you can implement it on, again, you can monitor the health or the condition of aircrafts or any other big structures like bridges or roads or morphing structures, or you can also use it for the health monitoring. For example, the WISER grant that I have received, there we are developing a patch. That patch will be applied to the chest of the baby. And that patch is basically a strain gauge, a strain sensor. And that sensor will detect all the respiration movements of the baby and then send it onto the ventilator. The ventilator will then adapt itself with the natural breathing pattern of the baby, because in the long term, that helps in the health. And this kind of research, that's why we have direct applications both in the health, the sector, or as well as in the structural and aerospace applications as well. So this is the kind of research that we are currently doing.
Dr. Shruti, for that elaborate and very simple way of communicating a complex stuff, what you're doing there. So now I have my second question. It's most of like trying to know your personal experience as a researcher. So having gained a lot of experience in the early phase of your career as a researcher, we are really interested to know your journey as a researcher and what attracted you to pursue a career in academic discipline. And also interested to know how was the process of getting into a dream role as an assistant professor at IIT Jodhpur.
Okay, all right. I'd like to keep this short because I think I'd like to talk more about how to help the students, but okay, I'll give a brief of what I did. So I think the first major decision that I took was when I was in BTech, when I had to decide, because most of my majority, 99% of my friends were appearing for job interviews, and I had to decide whether I'm ready to give another 5 or 6 or 7 years of my life to academia, because that means I'm still investing in the process and not really asking for rewards. So that was the first decision that I had to take. But fortunately, my father and my then mentor, Professor M.K. Chaudhary, who was the Vice Chancellor of Tejpur University, they both guided me and said that a direct PhD would be much better, because I was always, I mean, I had the initial exposure to research at Indian Academy of Sciences when I visited there as a summer intern during my BTech program. That's when I got the first taste of research. So they also suggested me, and I also liked it, and I thought a direct PhD would be much better, because I'm getting the best of both worlds. I don't have to spend 2 more years in AmTech, and I'm anyway getting the PhD degree, because I was very adamant that I will get a PhD. And following that, I think the right scholarships and the right people at the right time helped me a lot, because when I was in my PhD, my co-supervisor, Professor Rainer Runal, who is from University of Stanford, she joined, and she became my co-guide along with Professor Niranjan Sahu. And through her, I explored a lot. Then, like you mentioned, as Prem has already mentioned, I got this Genesis travel grant, where I got the opportunity to represent India and Japan. And now Genesis was not connected to research, but it was to extracurricular. But anyway, I mean, I went to Japan, I connected there with other people, because other participants of Genesis were also from other IITs and other topmost research institutes of India. So we had research discussion there as well. Then eventually I got the Erasmus Mundus Fellowship, and in Europe I had the first refreshing experience, because that's when I think I first realized that supervisors could be friends as well. Because in India, we all of you know that we have I mean, now the things are changing, but I think in my days it was there was always a gap between the student and the supervisor. You would think twice before knocking at your supervisor's door. But when I went to Europe, that thing changed, and I figured out, no, it can be friendly with your guide as well. We went out, we ate. I have a couple of pictures as well I can show you at the end. And after that, so Erasmus I got because IIT Guwahati used to regularly send a link of all those fellowships, which people usually ignore. And I just thought maybe I'll just try out. There is no loss in just applying. If I do not get, I don't have anything to lose anyway. And if I get it, then nothing like it. So I applied and I got it. Then when I came back, finished my PhD, for postdoc, I had to apply a lot. I mean, a lot. I think I have sent over 200 to 250 emails to various professors across the world. And on top of that, I had applied through every possible website, from ResearchGate, LinkedIn, academia.phd scholarships, and there are a number of websites. So I have applied. And it was one of those open advertisements. I think it was in ResearchGate or in academicscholarship.com that I got this postdoc fellowship. When I went to postdoc fellowship, then the experience changed, because now PhD was more of a guided research, especially when I talk about Professor Patsalas in Greece. He would meet me, and if I have any doubt, I'll simply tell him that this is my problem, and he would give me the solution. You try this way. When I went for postdoc, things changed, because now I was expected to lead the lab. I was kind of assistant to my professor. So I was supposed to teach the undergrads. I was supposed to write proposals, grants. I was supposed to publish heavily. And also South Korea is a bit of work-heavy country. So the experience was different from Europe. Europe is very friendly. I mean, nobody works on the weekends. I mean, if you want to work on the weekends, your supervisor will ask, why do you need to work on weekends? But in South Korea, it's like your supervisor will call you at 10 o'clock at night and come to lab, you have to submit this proposal. So things are different. But I think the biggest realization happened only when I came back and joined as an assistant professor. Now that I have to run everything independently, I have nobody to rely on. Now I think that, yes, from the very beginning, very in-depth knowledge of what you are doing is extremely important. I mean, no matter how cliche it sounds, but reading research paper every day is the trick, because you must remain updated to what is going on around you if you have to do something new. And if you don't read, you won't know what is going on around you. And then you possibly cannot contribute. Rest, everything comes later on. First, you have to find out what's going on, who is doing what. And then that's how it started. And as far as academics is concerned, I think I think I did well. I ended up in an IIT, so I think yeah, that's good, and I'm enjoying my job. But yes, when you come to professor level, the responsibilities increases tenfold because now there are tons of students dependent on you, and that's why. And also because IIT Jodhpur is a second-tier IIT, you get a bit more of administrative work to deal with as well. But otherwise, I think the journey had been quite rewarding, but it also had its own set of challenges and struggles. To point that, I think music was one of the what do you call window that allowed me to deal with all the frustrations that usually PhD students do. I also had my own set of failed experiments and frustrations during my PhD and postdoc. But yes, music always helped. And like I said, my mentors, Professor Gautam Vishwas, Professor Gunal, and Mihir Chaudhary, and my seniors also, and my colleagues in the later period, when I did my postdoc and during my Erasmus as well. All of them, they helped. And whatever I am here, I think I owe a lot to all of them.
Yeah, collaboration is a very vital part of research for conducting research in any university or an institute. There's always a collaboration, especially in India. Collaborations have been happening at an exponential rate in almost all the IITs and other elite and reputed institute across the country. So, in your perception, Dr. Shrutidhara, how to initiate collaboration with researchers, or what is the best way to initiate collaboration with international or national universities?
Right, that's a very pertinent question, Prem. So, like I mentioned, read research papers regularly. And the first thing is, if you have to collaborate, the first thing is that you have to identify a potential collaborator. Person who would be interested to work with you, person who knows something which is which could be complementary to what you know. So suppose there is a problem statement, you have to first find out which part of that problem statement you can contribute to, and then look for potential collaborators. That you can do by attending conferences. For example, if you're a material scientist, you will not just any conferences, targeted conferences. So there are conferences like MRS. If you are a mechanical engineer, you will target conferences by ASME. If you're an electrical engineer, you will target conferences by IEEE. And it's an umbrella, IEEE or ASME, but you have designated conferences. It depends on your area of research. So you go to those conferences, you attend the talks, you look for websites across, or everything is available online these days, and you look up research papers in your area. Figure out who would be your potential collaborator. Don't be afraid to send out cold emails. And remember, you have to always think of it in terms of professor's perspective. Most of the professors are busier than you think because they are handling tons of activities. As a student or as an initiator, you may feel bad if you do not receive an instant response. But trust me, it has happened with me as well. Even if we want to reply, something comes up and we just forget, and it just goes into the long list of emails. We get tons of email every single day. So be persistent and be specific. It never helps to send any generic or vague email. For example, dear Professor X, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm working on this, that. I would like to collaborate with you. No, you're not going to receive any response to that. But if you start your email something like this: dear Professor X, I read your research paper on developing the strain gauges. I also work on developing strain gauges, and I think we are working on microstructure level. So I think we can collaborate to work on developing a potential strain gauges which could be applied for structural health monitoring of morphing aircrafts. Would you be interested in collaboration? Question mark. Another point is, when you put a question mark, it gives an obligation to the person to respond immediately. Instead of saying, I would appreciate if you collaborate, full stop, does not make that much of impact if you put a question mark. Would you be interested to collaborate? A quick response would be appreciated. Thank you. Just send it, be concise, be precise, what you want, where you can collaborate, what is your goal. If you do that, 99% you will get a response. If If at all you do not get a response, you can send a quick reminder after 2 days or 3 days, because professors are very busy. This is about academia. About industry, I still do not have any current ongoing industry collaboration, so I may not be the best person to comment on that. But yes, if you can go through personal links, I think that would help. But there is no harm in sending out emails to them as well. And the second thing is that instead of writing too many texts, I think it's always best if you ask for a short meeting, where you write the usual email and would you be interested in collaboration? If yes, can we meet sometime tomorrow for 10 minutes? Specify 5 minutes or 10 minutes. If you say, can we meet sometime next week? No, that is vague. Can we meet tomorrow at 3 p.m. for 10 minutes? The professor would immediately say that, oh, I'm busy tomorrow. Let's meet the day after at 10 o'clock. Something like that. So those kind of specific tips, I think those help in collaboration. Yes.
I would like to add one question along with that. So is it mandatory that, like, when you are approaching a professor, that your sort of designation also matters, or you should be particularly working with the academic field, or you can be an independent researcher who want to voluntarily contribute and voluntarily do a research, something like that? In your own perspective, have you come across anyone in that?
That depends on the scenario. What are you trying to collaborate with? Are you writing a publication together? Are you trying to do some experiments together? Are you writing a proposal, a grant? Are you looking for some sponsorship? So these things matter. If you are writing for a grant, first of all, I think an individual researchers would be eligible for different grants. And especially if you're seeking a supervisor, let's suppose somebody is working in Germany, you want to write a proposal and you want him or her to be your supervisor. It's always, try to give as many information as you can in the same email. You straight away you can write, I'm interested in applying to this, and give the link within bracket, the link of the grant. Or if there is a call for proposal, CFP, you can simply say CFP is attached, so that the professor can click and open it. Second thing is, you must always send your CV. Let them evaluate. Because if somebody is willing to work with you, he would like to know what you are doing on. And make a very, very good CV. The CV must be very, very impressive. Otherwise, people lose interest quickly. Second thing is, you should also update your websites or profiles like Google Scholar, ResearchGate. Because if somebody is trying to work with you, he or she will immediately Google your name, and whatever comes up will make an impression. So you better keep that intact and updated. And so if you're working for a so that's what, if you want just an unofficial collaboration, maybe you just want to write a publication together. Maybe you are good at numerical modeling. Let's suppose we're doing at machine learning models, you're good at that. Somebody else is good at experiments. You can simply drop an email and say that, I see you have done this experimental work. I can do a machine learning model with this, and we can write a publication together. Are you interested? If it is for grant, then it will be different. The eligibility will come in. Yeah, so it will be from case to case, it will be different, but it only depends on what the other person wants. You will always have to check from their shoes, what are their incentives? What do they get by collaborating with you? Because if you're not able to give that, they would look at it from someone else.
Thank you for that insight. I think Arun can go with the next question.
The next question is something similar to these kind of research collaborations, because now funding is most important kind of the initiator for collaboration. So as for early career researchers, according to you, like, what are the possible funding sources? Let's start with the national level, and possibly like what will be the international kind of scenario.
Yeah, I think there are many funding sources available. I myself, when I was a student, was unaware of many of this. But now that I have become an academic, now I am more aware of this kind of funding sources. First of all, in India, there is this DST, Department of Science and Technology, DBT, Department of Biotech. Then there is Ministry of Earth Sciences. Then you have DRDO, you have ISRO. And depending on what your research is, these are the government agencies that can fund. Apart from that, there are other companies as well. company, a particular company or a group of companies which can also sponsor you. I work in sensors, so there is a scheme which has started from IIT Delhi itself, and IIT Delhi is developing something which is known as Sensor Hub. So they are allowing funding people. So funding can happen at different stages. So I'll talk from my perspective. So we develop products, right? We develop sensors, and from lab prototype, which is at TRL 3, Technology Readiness Level 3, until when it gets commercialized at TRL 8 or 9, it's a long process. And before an industry takes your research and translate into a product, you still have a long way to go to figure out whether the sensor is repeatable enough, whether it is giving the same robustness every time, whether it is working fine under different temperature or humidity or not, all those things. So this sensor hub funds those kind of work. But otherwise, if you are looking for very pure lab-based work, then this XERB DST are there. Otherwise, there are international fellowships as well, like there is something called Duo India, and there are bilateral programs, very many, let's say Indo-Italy, Indo-German, Indo-Philippines, Indo-Russia, Indo-Belarus, tons of it. And all of this you will get simply by clicking at the SERB website. So if you go there, you will get the long list. For students, there are other scholarships as well, PMRF fellowships, and there is Fulbright, both for students and faculty. There is Erasmus, there is DAD, and these are the different funding schemes that you can target both as a student, as a postdoc, or also as a early stage researcher, as an assistant professor, like first part.
Thank you. Over to Rain.
So there are numerous platforms nowadays on which the researchers can go to and search for and find articles as well as research collaborations and research opportunities. So I would like to ask you the next question, so which is, which are the useful resources or platforms for mechanical engineering researchers that you recommend for networking or grant providing or writing tool platforms, which you recommend for our students or aspiring students or people who are doing postdoc or something?
Right, for research discussion, you have the online websites like ResearchGate, where you can post the questions, or LinkedIn, where you can privately message somebody who is working in your similar field. Then you can become member of societies like MRS, which is Material Research Society, if your work is material focused, or ASME, as for that matter. And you can become a member of that, and you can talk to the members regularly if you have membership, and you can discuss there as well. Then you can use, like I said, conferences or workshops to visit. You will meet people who are working in your area, and you can create your network. Then you can also take help from your senior colleague to figure out who is working in similar field in your country. Suppose if you're looking at India, who else is working, then talk to those people and figure out who their collaborators are. So that way you can expand your network. Then these are for research discussion. Then there is, if you're working in a math lab, you can use MathWorks to ask questions. You are working in CFD, you can use CFD online forum discussions. So there are many online forums available these days where you can post your questions and people help. Apart from that, if I have to talk about tools, some tools are very, very important, and using them can save a lot amount of work and help you manage your calendar. So ultimately, it all boils down to time management. So there is something called Todoist, which you can use to keep track of your assignment deadlines or any work. So you can segregate your work as something like immediate, so things that you need to do immediately. Then you can also set deadlines, that upcoming deadlines. Then, or you can segregate according to your research, teaching. I'm talking from my perspective. From you, it could be experimental work, numerical work, paper publication, something like that. Then there is Overleaf, which is an online LaTeX version of software. So there you can also share with other collaborators. You can write a document, you can share with someone, they can give the comments. The other usual Google Docs and Excel sheets that you already know. Then apart from that, communication is very, very important. So many people think that doing good research is enough, but doing good research is not enough unless you are able to present it nicely to the scientific community. And the way you present it is through research papers or discussions. So research paper requires very high level of communication. So there could be people who are struggling with communication skills. They can use tools like Grammarly. Apart from that, nice diagrams always get you better grants, gets you better publications. So like I said in the very beginning, a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. So if you create a very good diagram of the entire process, so what you can do is you can add a flow chart to show what the paper is talking about. Or you can do a process flow diagram to show what process you have taken to reach at your goals, or the experiment, how you have done it, or if it is a numerical modeling as well. So you can use something which is called Draw.io software for drawing. Then there are other softwares like Mendeley or Zotero to take care of the bibliography of the references. I have seen many students doing references with hand, which is not only tedious, but it takes tremendous amount of time, and it's a waste of time. So you can always use those kind of softwares like Mendeley and Zotero, and that makes life a lot easier.
Oh, thank you so much for that elaborate list of tools that you it's really helpful. Over to Nirmal.
In everyday researchers' life, rejections are inevitable. So, for example, while applying for research positions, when submitting manuscripts or applying for research grants. So, Dr. Shruti, how do you handle rejections, and what advice can you give to the aspiring candidates or PhD postdoc students?
Thank you, Nirmal. I think, yeah, that's a very common, genuine, and very pertinent question again. Rejections are actually very, very common, especially in academia. I can only talk of academia because I'm here. But rejections are very, very common. For example, it would be surprising if somebody sends out a manuscript and it gets published right away without going through any major revision once or twice. So you have to get used to it. So just accept the fact that, and in many times it may so happen that the manuscript is actually very well written and it is actually very valuable, but it does not, it gets rejected because of the poor choice of journal. Probably you have not chosen the right journal for you, and that's why it got rejected. So you have to, first of all, you have to accept that rejection is a part. Second of all, you have to look at what exactly led to it. If it is a manuscript that is rejected, check if you have any other better journals that are targeted to that field. If it is a grant, then you can look at it, what mistakes have you done? If you're going to reapply for it, what changes can you make? Probably add a new picture, like I said before, so that it is easier for the reviewer to understand. So you always have to think from the other person's perspective. If you send out a picture, somebody who is not an expert in your field, and suppose he gets your proposal to review, what you will look at is your diagram. And if you're able to explain, you have a much higher chance. Or what else you can do is maybe add some preliminary results. If you write a grant just saying, I want to build a rocket to send to space, no, you don't get funded. But you say that, okay, these are the preliminary results of some of the tests that I have done. I think I am ready to build a rocket. Please give me some funding. Maybe you have better chances. Or you can always ask the reviewer or the funding agency to send you a review why your grant was rejected. In many cases, like Marie Curie Fellowship, they give scores. You have to have 70 in order to get funded. If you're not getting 70, maybe you ended up at 66, who knows? Or maybe you ended up at 40. So if you have the review from their end, you'll be able to understand. And then rest of the generic stuff, I can say that keeping a positive attitude and be persistent with your work, that everybody knows. I think nobody usually give up that way. But what else can also help is being focused. If you know what your goal is, I think that could be really helpful, because as a researcher, we have this tendency to get distracted when we read somebody else's research. So everything sounds very brilliant. Oh, maybe this idea is very nice, I can pursue this. Next day you read another paper and you feel, no, this is much more pertinent, I should do this. But at the end of the day, what you need is a flow chart. You need to know what your goal is. If your goal is to build a rocket, you put that at the end, build a rocket, and you make a flow chart that I'll first, let's say, collect all the scrap materials, then I'll do the assembly. I'm just giving an example. So if you have your flow chart in front of you, you won't get distracted. Even if you have the tendency, you know that, okay, this is my ultimate goal. So that can help a lot, I think, to deal with rejections. And most of the times, talking to people help. Your friend, your colleague, your senior, or your professor, if not your supervisor, some other professor, if not in your country, somebody else sitting in the other part of the globe can also help you. I myself have those kind of experiences. There is a professor Abbott who works in electrospinning. He is a Nobel laureate, and he is in UK. And I was doing some calculation related to electrospinning, and I had some doubts. And I saw that this is the guy handling this, and I sent out a cold email to him. To my surprise, he responded, and he responded like 3-4 times to clarify the doubt that I was having. So many of the times that helps. So I think instead of getting desperate and frustrated, I think one has to, talk to people and give yourself some time. If required, you take a break, go for a short workout or a musical session, come back and start afresh. That should help.
I don't know, what do you?
Because now the trend is like, since I am doing like my main duty here is to do research. So mostly, since I have from a thermal science background, now the catch is like, you don't excel alone. Like you cannot travel a long way if you are focusing on a particular area. You have to have some interdisciplinary thing in your head, because all the common graded proposals, if we see, they have something which is interdisciplinary sort of nature. So according to you, is it good to take the extra effort even after postdoc and PhD to read and learn a new stream, which is something goes well hand in with the whatever your expertise are? Is it really advisable, or like it is kind of depending upon the person's interest? What do you think?
Let me see if I have understood your question correctly. So you're asking, is it advisable to change your stream completely after your PhD or postdoc, or
No.
expand it to include the interdisciplinary part?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is, initially, if you look at Einstein, Newton, people who did fundamental physics, Nobel Prizes were awarded to one single person, or like rarely to 2 persons. For example, Madame Curie, she was awarded twice. She got it alone. Once she shared with her husband. But so those kind of fundamental attitude towards research is now gone. If you look at recent, let's say, breakthrough, let's say talking of graphene, it was awarded to 2 people. If you talk about CRISPR, the gene editing tool, it was awarded to a group. If you pick out any physics, chemistry, or any Nobel laureate from the past 4 or 5 years, you will see it is given to always a group or a couple of people or 3 people. One single person is becoming rare. That is because now our research has shifted actually to problem, towards solution towards a problem. So you are bound to create solution towards an existing problem. And when you say an existing problem, no matter what kind of problem it is, whether it's a cancer treating tool or whether it's a simple structural health monitoring system, it is always interdisciplinary. A problem will never come and say that I am from mechanical background, solve me. It will always have some part of physics, chemistry, maths, whatnot. You will always need some people to collaborate with to succeed in your area, no matter what you are doing. And also, it is not possible for one single person to excel in every single thing. I do interdisciplinary work, but it would be foolish of me if I go and compete with somebody who is coming from physics background, but I'm not competing with somebody from physics or somebody from nanotech. I am working in a field where people from physics can also contribute, and I am being mechanical engineer, I can also contribute in that field. So yes, it is very much advisable that you should build a group and look for people with counteractive skills. People, if you are working on, let's say, product development, look for people, or say, let's say, sensor. If you're working in sensors, look for people from electrical background, electronics background. If you're working in machine learning, look for people from CSE background. Build an interdisciplinary group, and you need not have in-depth knowledge of other people's expert area, but you should have an overall understanding of how it is working. So if you are developing an ML model, somebody else may do the algorithm for you, but you should at least understand that what inputs you are giving and what are the parameters that are playing major role in determining the output. So that overall brief idea is important. And yes, because the world is becoming very interdisciplinary, I think personally I would advise it very much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I guess we are moving on to the end note part. So, as far as from our side, we had an exciting conversation. We have learned a lot. We have learned a lot about FERN Lab. We have learned about the research with nano composite sensors, which is having a wide applications like in wearable devices for health monitoring, energy savings, and even in structures. And many other applications maybe in future, like Dr. Shrutidhara will coin something out of her own experience in the future. And also we had a wide list of the ways by which we can collaborate, some of the greatest tips we have got today, and also some of the aspects in which how to handle rejections, what are the common tools that we use in mechanical engineering, or while making a research presentation, or writing a research article, or even applying for funding. What are the things to look at has been shared. I would also like to note that this is just the starting of our group with this podcast series. So you will be expecting more similar series in the near future from our side as well. That's all. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Sure. Thank you, Arun. It was also as equally exciting for me to be a part of this podcast, and I hope we'll go a long way ahead together.